I just kind of wanted to bullshit for a little while, to be honest with you guys, because
There's nothing wrong with that, man.
I cut my workout short because Josh wasn't responding. Roger did. It's like, are we recording tonight or not? Because I'm going to cut my workout short. I'm 15 minutes away from closing my ring, and the little Apple Watch ring. But I'm going to get out of my gym because it's going to take me an hour to get back, feed the dogs, and all this stuff. Josh doesn't respond, and I'm driving on my way back, and it says Josh just finished a workout. And I'm like, that son of a.
You know what though, dude, you wanted to cut your workout short anyway.
A little bit.
Hey, you sent a text, and like before I could finish typing, it was Luke finished workout. But yeah, he was waiting for us to come back. Hey, dude, we're waiting on you. We're waiting on you.
It must have been leg day or something, or cardio. I was about to say it must have been leg day or cardio.
It was. I was wrapping up. Of course, your favorite stuff to work out. Your upper body. Chest and tries. Right. And you get done with that. I mean, it doesn't take long to work that out, and then it's like, oh, I got to do some cardio. You guys gonna record tonight or not? It's like, come on, guys, get back to me. Get back to me.
Yeah. No, you wanted to cut that short. I was going to say, you put your shake weight down, 20 minutes early. That's all you wanted to do.
So I'm going to give a shout out at the beginning this time, because I have a theory, right? If I give a shout out at the beginning to certain people, they'll feel obligated to listen till the end, or maybe they'll get the shout out and just shut it off right there. Either way. So haven't given
that's what I do.
Haven't given Jason a shout out in a while. He's a guy that I was over in. I was with him in Slovenia. We worked together, and he's still listening. I didn't understand that, and I didn't realize that, I should say, and appreciate him listening. And Jason, as you're plugging away on the metro, listening to this, going to work to do the Lord's work, man, we really appreciate it. So thanks for listening, Jason. That poor guy, man. He's got quite a commute. He's over in the Beltway, and he does not like it. Let's get that straight right now. They are not big fans. Like, if you had to live in the Beltway, Josh, or not in the Beltway, like Northern Virginia, Maryland, wherever, where would you pick to live? Since you've lived there, probably. Roger, has he lived there definitely longer than me? You lived there longer than you in the area?
Well, I've been back and forth, and I'm from Salisbury, so
okay.
I mean, I spent total between Belvoir and me. I've spent 10 years in the NCR.
Oh, so if you had to go back, dude, if you had to, it's like,
if I had gun to my head, right? Because that's probably the only way I would go back, and then it would be debatable. Still, I'd be like, well, I mean, is it really that bad being dead? So I would live out west. Going toward like Front Royal. I would live, I would hate it to have to deal with 66, but I would only deal with 66 to Vienna. I'd hop the metro at Vienna and then, take it all the way in, or hop the new Silver Line, somewhere around Dulles. But it would be out west toward Front Royal, going toward the Shenandoah. That would be where, or I would live so far southwest, like we're talking like Culper County, Virginia. It would be out there, because I lived in Hood Bridge, when I lived on the Virginia side of the NCR, and it was brutal. It was just it was the worst, the absolute worst. So that's where I'd be.
What about Roger? Do you?
Well, I mean, I've lived kind of all over the place. I used to live in Fredericksburg as a kid. Lived in Annapolis a couple of times. I'd probably do Annapolis. I do like being across the bridge, but of course, even that has grown up a lot. And I probably with Josh, man, I don't know. I could actually pick any area because I just wouldn't go back. I mean, it's one of those things that, like, if Jason thinks it's bad now and he lives there, which, and we all do, it's way worse once you leave and you have to go back and visit. I mean, you're just like, fuck. Dude, so I despise that place.
I think he lives in Fairfax. I'm right. It's like one of the last stops, like on the Red Line, maybe. Is that right? Is that Fairfax?
I don't think no, because the Red Line runs north up to I forget where, but it's north. It's kind of north of the Beltway, which, I mean, Fairfax is, but
runs
more like northwest.
Bethesda and all that stuff.
Yeah, Fairfax. I want to say it's the Orange and Silver line that runs out to
maybe
out
it's
through
Line.
Fairfax. Yeah,
maybe
I'm pretty sure it's the Orange line, because the end of the Orange line is Vienna, and that's Fairfax area. Out north, once you get to where Boston, like you continue head like west northwest. Um, yeah, that'd be headed
He
out toward
said
Fairfax more.
he says it's not bad. Like the actual location isn't bad. And I've driven out there, and it's not bad. It's kind of your Northern Virginia type area. He said he and his wife both said it's the neighbors. It's just awful. Like there's they're all federal employees, of course, and everybody's trying to figure out if the husband and wife are both 14s or one's a 14, one's a 15. Is this one an SES? And it's just everybody looking crossways at each other. It's just I can't imagine that. I would hate that. I'd probably hate that worse than being surrounded by State Department people. Maybe. I don't know.
I thought those were your favorite.
Oh God.
It's just like living around post, though. It's the same thing. That's why I live where I live. I live where I live because I am away. That there are no military people near me, and it's just it's not the the wives wearing the husband's rank or the stay-at-home husband wearing the wives' rank and the FRG dude. Yeah, I don't want to deal with any of that stuff.
Yeah. No, so living close to military installation here, you still get that every now and then. We'll get somebody new that moves into the neighborhood or the area, stuff like that, and you can always tell there's like, well, where do you work? What do you do? What rank are you? Or what? And it's like, oh, okay. Like it really.
There's definitely a hierarchy at Bragg, man. I mean, I don't know who knows the hierarchy better, the wives or the single women, because as I recall, Josh, you correct me if I'm wrong. The hierarchy with the single women around Fort Bragg is as follows. It's like, are you an operator? Are you in the unit? Number one, that's highest on the totem pole.
Oh, yeah.
Number two would probably be group, definitely group guys. Yep. Number three would be, I'm going to skip over airborne and go with any sort of aviator, right? For single women. Yep. So you got the aviators there. Then probably, would you say 82nd probably? And then anybody else that's not airborne. And then what is it? ForceCom or whatever is not Force. Yeah. ForceCom is way down the line. Am I missing anybody there?
I would say after the aviation, it probably gets into the just, are you an officer?
Oh, okay.
Right. You mean you wouldn't throw COSCOM in that?
COSCOM. That's what I was. COSCOM
first COSCOM. So
sorry.
So I think I'm not 100% sure because I've largely tried to push Fort Bragg out of my mind. I don't think first COSCOM exists anymore. I think that went away in a bunch of the realignment stuff.
Whatever.
So,
same difference.
Yeah, exactly.
Are still there.
Oh well, no, yeah,
cares.
no, yeah, but yeah, I think after the aviators, I think it goes to, well, are you an officer? Before you get into the, are unit wise, because after you get through, honestly, after you get through USASOC, and the group got, dude, there's no other cool units here. I mean, it's the 82nd, which. I mean, they can't get through. They can't. They still have the sign up on I think it's on Riley or Gruber. It's like, hey, it's been X number of days since the DUI fatality, right? They can't make it to 82 to get their 4-day weekend, and they haven't made it there in a while. So, dude,
it's funny because that 82nd day seems to fall on like the week before the 4-day.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. It's ridiculous. I try and stay away from posts as much as possible and only go back there like, when an ID card needs updating or something. Other than that, I try and stay away from there. Even if I have to go to Fayetteville for something, I don't even cut through post. Like I drive around it. Yeah, dude, really? I'll drive around it just so I don't have to go through it, just so I don't have to deal with it.
So how much further of a drive is that?
Oh, it'll tack on probably 30 minutes.
Dude, remember when you were working on base and that big flood or hurricane came through and washed out the back gate and your 30-minute commute became an hour and a half commute?
Yes. Dude, that was the worst, man. They had sinkholes open up and the MPs, right? And this is one of many reasons why I hate the military police, especially Army MPs. So those out there listening are still in. If you ever get pulled over and that MP goes, do you know why I pulled you over? The only correct response is, well, it's because you scored low on the ASVAB. And so when the hurricane came through Manchester Road, there was 2 sinkholes opened up on Manchester, and the only other way to get out to the west side of Fort Bragg was either you drove 690, which is on the north side that runs up through Spring Lake, and then you cut west across the north side of Bragg, or you go through Rayford, which cuts through the south side of Bragg. Either way, it's a haul. Like, it is a haul, man. But you could have went through, if you take Long Street and you just keep going to Long Street, keep driving, and eventually Long Street stops being pavement and it turns into dirt. Well, it pops out way out there, like way out there at Normandy Drop Zone is where it finally comes back into Manchester. And then you can pick Manchester up and it's hardball, all the way out to Moore County. Well, that lasted for about half a day when the sinkholes opened up until the MPs blocked it off and started ticketing people for using that. And all it was a graded dirt road. That's it. It ran through the training area, it ran through the drop zones, but it was like, there was no, you weren't interfering with any training driving on it or anything, because it's an active road. But the MP said, no, you can't use that. And you're like, bro, like you tacked on 45 minutes, almost to an hour of my commute by not letting us use this. And dude, they didn't care. They did not care. They were like, you can go around, like not go around the sinkhole. Like you have to go around Fort Bragg, which, anybody who's been here knows it's not a small place, but whatever. But again, it's one of many reasons why I avoid that place, like the bubonic plague. So
I've got a trivia question, and the trivia question is something I cannot remember. And the little sinkholes and stuff got me thinking about it, because you remember Josh and Roger, probably, I'm sure Roger experienced this, when it would get muddy at Bragg or wherever you were, some moron E3 or E4 would drive their Humvee through a giant puddle, right? And sometimes not a Humvee, sometimes a tank, and that thing would get stuck in there, right? And I remember there was a term for when you're pulling that thing out, the weight ratio of how much pulling strength you have to pull that thing out. If it's stuck like 3 feet down, it's versus 4, it's exponential from 3 to 4. And I can't remember the term for that. Do you remember the term where it's an exponential weight pull? I know there was a term because we were talking about it all the time. Because like, don't get your Humvee stuck because it's going to take one of those engineer vehicles to pull it out. Y'all don't remember?
Dude,
you don't remember?
No, I don't remember what the saying was. But I know if you got a Humvee stuck and it was buried up to the hood, it required, what do they call them? I think it was one of those 88s.
Chinook.
Yeah. I don't think a Chinook could do it. But it required one of the 88s to come out and pull that thing out. And the 88s, those things were towing the Hemmets, the big dragon wagons. Like those things were, it's like the tugboat. It's like a tugboat on tracks. And that would be it. Yeah, I don't remember.
Roger is laughing at us. He's laughing at us like, you plebes. I don't know any of that stuff. I never went to the field.
Nope, never, not at all.
So talking about places to live, have you guys seen the Netflix series Blue Zones?
No.
Live to be 100.
Yeah. You seen it, Roger?
Yeah, I get to spend the weekend out with Luke and his family, and his mom actually recommended it, and we just finished it last week. We watched all 4 episodes.
Oh, nice. So yeah, so the wife and I were watching it. We came across it and was like, oh, what is this? Because I'd never heard about what a Blue Zone was, and we started watching it, and it's super interesting. When you really got into it, we watched a couple episodes. We haven't finished it up, but we watched the ones where they covered Okinawa, Sardinia, Italy, and then Loma Linda out in California.
So what's the premise? Because when my mom starts talking, I tend to no offense, Mom, but I lived with her for a very long time.
She don't listen anyway.
And yeah, well, she does sometimes. Anyway, when she starts talking, I tune her out. So I remember y'all having that conversation, but what is the context of the show? It's called Blue Zones. What's it about?
Miss Jones, I apologize for Luke right now. When you talk and when you message me, I hang on every word. Luke is very ungrateful. So a blue zone, so a blue zone is an area in the world where they have basically a higher than average number of centenarians. All right, and so that they consider it a blue zone, and I don't know if it's because it's old people in blue. We call them in Florida they're blue hairs. So I guess that's why they're called blue zones. I don't know, but they pointed out that this guy, and I forget the dude's name is. So he started taking a look at it's like, okay, well, where are these areas at, and then what do they have in common? And so he identified, and now I think, and Roger, correct me if I'm wrong, I was probably pre-COVID. Um, I would guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. So it was
Well,
like
real quick, if any of those zones were in northern Italy and it's just now airing, I guarantee it was pre-COVID because there ain't a lot of centenarians living in northern Italy after COVID.
no. The only place in Italy was Sardinia, that they named. So it was like it was Greece, place in
Yeah.
Greece, Okinawa,
Ikaria, Greece.
yeah, Japan, Oki, Costa Rica was a place. Nicoya, the Nicoya Peninsula or something. I forget what it was. And then in Loma Linda, but even in Loma Linda, it wasn't everywhere. In these places, it's not everywhere. It's only these small like villages, like these. It's very geographically center. And so, like Loma Linda, it was specifically the Seventh Day Adventist out there. But the guy breaking it down, like Okinawa, people live average but it was like 33% longer than the average American in Okinawa. And so the dude goes to all these places and he's like, okay, what are the commonalities? And because especially during COVID, like you said, Luke, like everybody knew like Italy, why are all these people dying in Italy? It's like, well, because they're so old, right, from COVID. And that was one of the reasons, but Italy had a lot of older people. And so he found that basically like people were moving, right? People, they were either actively gardening, they were walking, they weren't out doing, CrossFit or anything crazy like that. They were just moving. Um, you know, he said, and Roger, again, feel free to jump in. Most of their diets were plant based. They ate meat. They weren't vegan or anything. They ate meat, but a lot more plant based. They had some type of purpose, right? It's like I have my garden that I work in, or I have a neighbor that needs taken care of. Like they had some type of purpose. And then I forget there was a couple other commonalities, Roger. I can't remember all of them, but it was really interesting.
That this social
Yeah,
circles,
yeah, yeah.
and it. I guess and so I don't. You didn't see the last episode yet,
No,
correct?
no, the Loma Linda was the last one we watched.
So you can skip the last episode because just like a lot of these documentaries do, like the first three or four, you're like, wow, man, fact based, right? I think the guy was extremely objective, very fact
Yeah,
based. And then you get to the woke piece at the last episode, and it's actually pretty. I laughed because I'll save you all of it, but they basically try to go replicate other blue zones around the country. And you know what one of the places he picks is? And I'm going to go down there. I'm going to go down there and I'm going to go film this. South Phoenix. So me living in Phoenix.
oh my lord.
Now, I guess if you go to, you take a place where the average age is like 40 because you get shot in the face, and you live to be 60, you're doing pretty well. But it's when I went back and looked at it and talked to my wife because we watched it together, it's like it was neat and it was interesting to see them display everything and state it, but I didn't learn anything. Like, is it surprising that people that eat whole food, whatever it is, live longer? Whether it's non-GMO, no steroid cattle, or homegrown. Of course, like yeah, they probably eat better. You know what else you didn't see? I didn't see power lines, microwave ovens, cell phones. Did you see one cell phone in any of those episodes so far?
No.
Right.
Nope.
A lot of that stuff, dude. There's no Xboxes, and it's like, hey, they're not going to the gym because you know what? They walk everywhere they go.
Yeah.
So it's like when you look at the exercise, the eating, the social circles, the religious aspect of like the Seventh Day folks, the purpose is like when you really look back, it's like, did you really learn anything? And it was an interesting show. I didn't think I really learned anything as opposed to them just really presented it to me.
So did at any point in the in the documentary, did they go into did the guy go into the genetic aspect of it? In other words, hey, did somebody move here at like age 18 or whatever and they magically live to 105? Or because it seems
Now
like,
they
especially
did.
with the Seventh Day Adventist in these small areas like Okinawa, you would think that it doesn't take too many generations to have a genetic trait that, especially with longevity. So I just wonder if genetics what there was there any focus on genetics, or can you move there as an outsider at age 5 and live to 100 106?
So he did talk about genetics a little bit, and he cited a couple of studies, and I can't remember the name of them. I need to go back and take a listen to the first episode when he references genetics. But he was saying in the study that he cited, laid out that genetics are only 20 to 30%. They only factor into 20 to 30% of your longevity, and the rest is basically what that show laid out, having a social circle, having a purpose, moving every day. You don't have to do crazy PT, but just moving, because like in Sardinia, even in Sardinia, it was only like the centenarians, the concentration of centenarians was in this one village, and this one village was actually on the side of a mountain, right? And so it's like, okay, well, does the elevation here, because the streets are elevated, and people are walking up and down
Right.
hills, as opposed to 10 miles away, they don't have that many centenarians, and because one of the things is they live in a flat, they basically live in a valley, and so they don't get the same level of cardio, if you will. But yeah, genetics. Yeah, he talked a little bit about it, but didn't really dig into it. Now, I will say most of the people that he interviewed, well, let me retract that. A lot of the people that he interviewed talked about they had lived there, their family had lived there. I don't remember anybody saying, we had moved here outside of maybe the Loma Linda one, with the Seventh Day Advents. But the Okinawa, the Sardinia, like they had roots there.
Mm. With the old age thing, because that sounds interesting. I guarantee my wife would like to watch that. Now that I have all the spoiler alerts from you guys, so whatever. I guess I'll be able to fall asleep or do
Dude,
something
you'll
else.
be angry. Like
So
Josh, when you watch the last episode, you need to come. You need to bring it back up, because when I got done, I was angry because they try to make a comparison to the U.S. versus Singapore. Because that's real apples to apples right there, right? And
Oh,
anyway, I
Jesus.
didn't mean to cut off, but we definitely need to readdress this, because the first 3 episodes, I was like, man, okay, I get it, it makes sense, da 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 da. And yeah, I need to clean up my. If anything, it's like I just need to clean up my lifestyle a little bit, and then I
yeah.
get to the 4th episode, and I'm like, yeah, f these
Well,
people.
here's the thing about old age, right? I've always said and this is part of it is living in the U.S., right? Because the U.S. is, especially in the last few decades, has or 2 or 3 decades, has become extremely unhealthy. I think we can all agree. You can go to your local Walmart in Apache Junction, see where your tax dollars are being spent, right? And just see how unhealthy the general population is. If you live a healthy lifestyle and you go to the gym and you're going to the Whole Foods and stuff like that, you're like, oh well, everyone's healthy. Well, you're surrounding yourself by healthy people because it's your lifestyle. Get out into the wild and you really see what it's all about. But my point about getting old, it's like I've always said, I don't want to get super old. And the reason I said that was because I don't want to be an invalid laying in a nursing home with just crapping my pants and peeing my pants and having somebody who doesn't give a rat's nothing about changing my diapers and all that stuff. I don't want to live horribly the last 5 to 6 years of my life. I don't want to suffer like that. I'd rather just go quick, right? Now these people that you guys are talking about, I mean, my one of my grandmothers, for instance, she, till the last day of her life, she was still moving around. She still kind of had a purpose. She had her little hobbies. She lived with 3 other women about her age. She's in her 80s, and she just passed suddenly. Well, that's great. That's fine. If I can live and be happy or whatever, have some sort of purpose, fine. I could live to be 106. But there's no guarantee of that, right? There's no guarantee you're not going to get Alzheimer's and really go downhill. I think we may have all three seen Alzheimer's happen to people and all that. I think the real fear for me, at least, and Roger, I don't know if you share this or not, the fear is not necessarily of dying, right? It's dying poorly. I don't want to die poorly. And the odds of me dying very poorly, the older I get, are greater because I've seen it so much. You don't really, I don't know. I mean, am I really off base or?
Yeah, well, so Josh and I don't really relate because we have VA healthcare that's going to
Ah.
take care of us.
Oh, wow. Yeah, you guys got them made.
You know what though? On that, and I was going to say this, and this is the one thing that was shocking to me with this episode, with this series, and Josh, tell me if you feel the same. But these folks look good. Like the one dude
Yeah.
that was like on the horseback, like I saw his picture, and like, I've been around a lot of old people. You see like the thin skin and the real frail. I'm like, that dude looked like he was what, 72, 73.
Yeah.
And they're like, nah, he's 107. I'm like, that dude is 107. Like, he legit looked like he was early 70s. I mean, he didn't look 50. Okay. I mean, you
Sure.
guys are old, but I think almost every one of them, with the exception of maybe one or two, you're like, okay, yeah, you're over 100. It's like, you might be mid 70s, maybe creeping on early. Like, nah, I'm 105. I'm 109. I'm like, holy
Yeah.
dude, they look fantastic for their age.
No, you're right. Everybody that was in there that they talked to, all the centenarians and people even well into their, well into their 90s. You look at them. I mean, they interviewed one lady. She was 92. She's out playing pickleball
Yeah.
in Loma Linda. Like you look at them and you're like Roger said, man, you're like, yeah, you're in your mid 70s. Yeah, easy. It's just like, no, 96. And you're like,
But
holy moly. Like,
these are the extreme outliers, though. Extreme outliers. That's, let's be honest, with as much beer and alcohol as we drink, that's not going to be us. Okay. I ain't going to be, no, 90, 96 years old looking like I'm 71. And neither will you guys. So, so at this point, right, we're always talking about harder to kill and all this stuff, right? What do you do? Because I just turned 50. What do you do at this age to, you know, look forward and be like, okay, when I'm my parents' age, when I'm in my mid to late 70s, coming into my 80s, what do I do now to ensure that I'm not going to be that invalid living a horrible life at age 80?
I mean, I think you do what these folks were doing, right? I mean, it's just, again, just get out, get some sun every day, walk. Again, you don't have to, you don't have to go deadlift, 500 pounds or anything like that. Just get out, walk, eat whole foods. And I mean, these people were, even the people like, so when they were in Sardinia, I mean, they're Italian. These people were eating pasta and bread and, everything, but they were making it themselves. Right. And so they're making it themselves from scratch. So it wasn't processed bread with all these additives and everything in it. So I mean, it was obviously carbs, but it was, it was whole carbs. And these people were drinking. They like almost every single one of them they talked to, and whether they were, whether they were in Okinawa, whether they were in Italy, it was like, yeah, I drink a couple, 2 glasses of wine a day, in the afternoon. And so I think you do that. You surround yourself. You get that social circle. You get that social net, support net, and you have a purpose. Right? What
Yeah.
is your purpose in life? And one lady they interviewed, her purpose, she's like, I have my garden. That's my purpose, to take care of my garden. She's out, in her flowers every day, and she's 100, 103 years old, and she's out there by herself, getting in her flower beds and doing her thing. You know,
So speaking of eating whole foods and stuff, everybody knows by this point. I hope everybody knows. Listen to the podcast. You two guys know it more than anybody. The three of us are not necessarily health nuts, right? We're not, we're not health freaks. Roger probably more than Josh and I, because Roger, he has not, I wouldn't say a strict diet, but he's a little bit more disciplined, I would say, with the types of foods and things like that. But I have been up until like the first week of September. I had been eating fairly sensibly, with the exception of the beers at night. Uh, and I'm eating to prepare to go work out in the evening. It's like, well, I can't eat, these potato chips because I'll feel like crap when I work out, because I'm replacing a meal with potato chips. That's not going to work. So I was eating fairly sensibly. And then like we like Roger mentioned, the first week of September, over Labor Day, we went down to Tombstone, Arizona. Shout out to Eric, and we're going to talk about this a little bit more later. But I just like, you know what? I'm going to take this week and I'm going to eat like garbage. I'm not going to care what I eat. I'm not going to care what I drink. I'm just gonna eat what I want. So I did. Roger saw it. He was there. He witnessed it firsthand. I was eating
It
like
was brutal.
thick hamburgers, and French fries, fried cheese. It's good French fries, fried in animal fat too. Man, those were brilliantly good. And I am telling you, brother, I felt a difference. I felt a
Yeah.
marked difference. And one of the things I found, I was getting zits, freaking zits. I had a giant zit like right between my eyebrows. That freaking never happens. It's like you can't attribute that to anything but the food. It wasn't the stress. I wasn't stressed out, but it's like just eating bad, like consistently eating bad. You go a couple of days, weekend, whatever, but consistently eating irresponsibly. I felt it. And y'all weren't down there as long as I was, but did you get, and I asked this to Josh too, because I know we get on the road, because being on the road is the same thing. Sometimes you have no choice.
Yep.
And I mean, did you feel a difference, Roger? Because I mean, you weren't there as long, but did you feel anything?
Oh yeah, dude, I can tell after a weekend. I mean,
Yeah.
even back home, and it's like when you're young, man, you always feel good. I mean, if I felt bad when I was young, it's because I was hungover or whatever, and that went away after 2 or 3 hours. So, but at this age, dude, if I go a weekend and just eat like crap, like I feel it. I feel it in my body. I feel it in my performance, the sluggishness, and it'll take me 2 or 3 days of eating healthy to just get back on track. So it's and that's one of the things, you said, we're not health nuts, and I think that's what I've tried to do is, and really tried it ever since that documentary Josh is talking about is, you got to eat, and I don't count calories, I don't count the protein and this and that and whatever. I generally know what I'm taking in. We've all been eating our whole lives, so we kind of know what's good and what's bad. I just try to make sure that what I take in is higher quality. So, do the whole vegetables, do the fruits. I stay away from the juices. I stay away from the sugar. I mean, dude, I haven't added sugar to anything in 10, 15 years. Same thing with salt. Not that that matters, because they say there's more salt in the foods than what you'll ever add, right? But it's just all the little things. I try to make those conscious decisions to where, hey, I'm going to eat. I don't necessarily need to count everything, but make it higher quality. As Josh was saying with the pasta, hey, if you can eat whole grain pasta that hasn't been processed, you can still have that, still have the carbs, and it's going to be a lot healthier for you than going and getting the box pasta at the Fry's or the Kroger or something like that, and or oregano's or something like that. But yeah, dude, I totally feel it. I mean, I felt it. Man, it was folks, it was disgusting. It was completely disgusting, the amount of food and beer that Luke and I
Oh,
shoved in our gullets over a couple
you
days.
remember I asked the question. I said, have you ever taken a dump that made you feel like you'd slept 12 hours? Slept 12 hours, not need to sleep, Josh. I texted you guys, have you ever taken a dump that made you feel like you slept 12 hours? Because that had just happened to me. And Roger goes, yeah, as soon as I got back from Tombstone,
Yep.
the cleanse.
Oh, yeah. No, and Roger is absolutely right. I mean, it comes down to, you just try and pay attention to what you're taking in. Like, dude, at the end of the day, there, I want my Freddy's, my Freddy's steak burger and shoestring fries every now and then, and that's okay. And I will go get that every now and then. But I know that I know when I scarf that down for the next couple hours, like it's gonna taste good, and until about an hour, and then about an hour later, dude, I feel like, man, I got to go take a nap. Like I just, it's sleepy time. You just don't feel good. But by and large, and that's why, that's why I made my rule. Like during the week, I eat clean. I eat clean during the week, and generally on the weekends, like I'll eat, generally what I want within reason. I'm not going to eat, a large pizza every day on the weekend, but you know, but I'm still getting
Just on Saturday.
just on Saturday. But on the weekend, I'm still trying to get, I'm still trying to get my gallon of water in. I'm still trying to get, at least something in. We talk about getting old. So I pulled a muscle in my back last week. And
Ugh.
I really haven't been able to work out. And it was disgusting, right? It was almost like the time, and it's the same muscle. It's the exact same muscle that I pulled when I was trying to put on my socks sitting on the side of the tub. That wound that put me on the floor of the bathroom on my back in agony, and all I was saying is like, not like this, not like this. Um, it was the same muscle. I was doing rows. I was doing bent over rows, barbell rows with 75 pounds. 75 pounds. It wasn't even heavy, right? Because I was doing just a whole lot of reps. I got 3 reps into it, and all of a sudden it was just like kick, kick, and that side, the left side of my lower back just seized up, and it was like my wife. She was in the garage putting some stuff in the garage fridge, and like I dropped the weights, and I like half stand up, and I start walking around, but I'm still like half bent over, but I'm tweaked to the side a little bit. I look like a question mark, and she's like, "Where does it hurt? What'd you do? What's wrong with you? What is going on?" Like she knew immediately that I did something that had hurt myself. So I really haven't been able to do a whole lot for the last about a week. And that, and so I really had to watch, what I've eaten the last week, because, it's hard to burn it off right now. So I say this as I'm sitting here having a glass of bourbon. Yeah,
Hey, dude, there's no fat in bourbon, no cholesterol, no fats,
no
low calorie.
hey, no additives,
Relatively.
man, no additives. It's just
Yeah,
straight.
man.
It's just yeah. So, but yeah, when it comes to all that, it's just, it comes down to common sense. You got to burn more than you take in, and you just got to watch what you take in. The processed stuff will kill you. It will kill you. It will, it's going to kill you quick. Try and get whole foods in there. You're going to feel better. Like you said, at our age, like I genuinely feel when I eat clean and when I don't. I can
Yep.
I can feel a noted difference in my body, cognitive function, everything.
Dude,
So
I ate McDonald's for the first time in years because there was nothing open. There was nothing open. I was starving. The only thing that this little town had was a McDonald's. So I go in and I was like, I'm just going to get a coffee and I'm going to starve. I'll just starve myself. But then I found myself, ordered on the menu and they had the little special that came up, quarter pounder jalapeno bacon, whatever
Yeah.
burger. And I was like,
giddy up.
try it. How bad could it be? Right. I, I don't want to be a snob. I'm not trying to be a snob. I'm just telling the truth, man. It's how I felt. It's like while I was eating it, I was like, this tastes good. But as I'm halfway through it, I'm like, this is not food. This is something different. This is like movie theater candy. It's this is not right. It didn't taste right. It was sweet and salty, and it didn't taste like bread. It didn't have the consistency of real bread. The meat, are you kidding me? That's not meat. That's something else. Maybe there's protein in it. Maybe there's some animal something. But again, Josh, you said it. You feel sluggish and everything. I was driving and I was just like, okay, this is bad because I'm feeling like I'm falling asleep at the wheel from one little tiny, because a quarter pounder is not the quarter pounder it was in 1989. They're
Nope.
tiny now, and I just it blew my mind. So I also ate a Popeyes chicken sandwich, which was brilliant. Those things are so good.
Glorious.
But I had the same
Glorious.
reaction to it, and I will eat those things again. Not McDonald's. I'm done with
Hands.
that. But I will eat Popeyes and Chick-fil-A. And Josh, I want to ask you this. I know we're leaving Roger out a lot here. I'm sorry.
It's all good.
So is the Chick-fil-A thing still going on in your family? And I was just going to ask you, is that going on? And how's that going?
It's going good, man. It's going good. Yep, still going on.
What does she think? What does she think? She like it?
She she doesn't. So she doesn't necessarily like working so much. She's like, oh, I have a really long shift on Saturday, but she likes payday. You know. So, but yeah, man, dude, she when she's got a shift, she gets home from school. She's like, hey, Dad, how was your day? Blah, blah. Hey, I got to change. I got to get, I got to get to work. And so she knocks out her
So
homework after she gets home. But yeah, man, she loves it.
do you have any, do you have any insight on what their secret is? Right? Like, has she let you in on that? Is it like because Chick-fil-A obviously has some of the best service in the fast food industry. There's just no doubt about it. They crank them through there. So any insight on the secret?
So I mean, their secret to their customer service, as far as like please and thank you and my what do they say? It's my pleasure. I mean that's just based on good family values, right? And discipline. but I mean, their training program, when she got hired, she had to go through their training program, and their training, a lot of people's training programs, like, okay, here, sit here for 2 hours, and we're gonna, show you some things, and that's gonna be that. Dude, their training program was days. And so, by the time, and a lot of that's the OJT piece, but like you're not allowed to interact with customers, until somebody, that training manager says, okay, you're good to go. Um, and then, as far as being able to, get people in there and kind of their assembly line, their processes. So from what she said, they have engineers, like people with engineering degrees come in and consult and say, this is how you do this, this is how you create efficiencies in this process, and whether it's internal, to where you have somebody, they've got it figured out, because one shift at their Chick-fil-A, dude, there's like almost 16 people in one shift at their Chick-fil-A, right? You have one person that's dedicated, all they do is drinks. That's it. That is their sole purpose in life. Their entire shift is just do drinks. Then you have one person on lobby. Their entire job in life is to keep that lobby clean and to keep people who are dining in, keep their cups refilled. As soon as you're done with that trash, get that trash out of there, right? And then you have one person that's dedicated to trash. That's all they do. Their entire shift is trash. And so instead of, well, we can hire, we'll just have 4 people on shift and they can do it all. No, they would rather pay a little bit more, have, 16 people on shift, and each person, you're doing one thing, and you're going to do that one thing very well, as opposed to, well, you're one person, but you're doing 4 things, because you're going to, yeah, you could do 4 things, but you're going to do 4 things half ass, because your task saturated after a certain point, right? So really, I think that's the biggest secret that is a secret. It's common sense when you think about it. I mean, they talk about it like it's the Coca-Cola secret recipe, and then you start thinking about it, you're like, well, it's just common sense shit, right? Many hands make light work. I mean, that's not dude, that's not some revelation. We're not splitting atoms here. You're not Oppenheimer, figuring this stuff out. Um, so yeah, no, it's going, man. She, again, she likes it. It's a great company. Right before Christmas, the manager, I say the manager, the owner, of that particular store walked in, and everybody that was on shift, and he did it over a period of days to catch everybody, handed them all $100 bill. And it was like, here you go, Merry Christmas. And that was, they employ a lot of people there, because it's a massive store. It's one of the new ones with two lane drive throughs and everything. So yeah, I mean, it's good. It's Lord's chicken. Can't beat it.
Well, they give a shit, right? I mean, that's
Yeah.
the secret. They give a shit, and it's they are catering to a different demographic than the McDonald's does or the Burger King does, because it's no different than going into a high end restaurant. When you go to a Chick-fil-A, they are a little bit more expensive than if you went to your local McDonald's, right, or Taco Bell or whatever. So different than going to a 4 or 5 star restaurant where you're paying more for the meal, but guess what? You're getting the exact same type of service that he's talking about at Chick-fil-A. Now, the fact that they were able to scale it for a fast food restaurant, I mean, that in itself is awesome. But it's the same premise. Hey, you pay a little bit more, they're going to invest a little bit more, and then instead of just getting the local yokel McDonald's. I know we're picking up McDonald's. There's 1,000 local places like that that just don't care, right? Because it's not about quality of service. It's just about pumping out food, cheap food, as fast as they possibly can. Whereas the Chick-fil-A model is, hey, pay a little bit more, better quality food, and better quality service. And then they invest in their people, and it's just a self-licking ice cream cone, right? And then so you do that, and that's scaled at the higher end, restaurants, and when you look at everything from your Chili's, Applebee's, to your Red Lobsters, to your Steak 44s, your Ocean 44s, Longhorn, those are different tiers that cater to different demographics, and generally speaking, you see it, right? Because it's not just one thing or the other; it's the whole atmosphere, it's the whole thing. You walk in, it's like food's not quite as good, atmosphere is not quite as clean, the service isn't quite as good, but the prices are probably slightly cheaper, right? So it's hey man, that's awesome. Hey, you know what? The fact that she's still working is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not that you give her a choice, I'm sure, but
Well, I mean, here was the thing though. It was like, so we didn't expect her to start working at 15 and a half. right? I mean, there was zero expectation for you to start working
Likes that
a
money.
part-time job, right? But she was like, she got tired of asking us and us saying no because, by and large, man, unless it's your birthday or Christmas, we're not going out and buying you shit. Like it's just like that. That's not how I was raised, and not because it was it was just a discipline thing or whatever. It's like we just didn't have the money. Like, was it your birthday or Christmas? You weren't getting anything, so don't even ask. When you go to the store, there was no expectation. And so she just got to a point. She was like, you know what? I want my own money. I want to be able to buy the things I want to buy. Can I get a job? And it was like, yeah, absolutely, you can. You know, and she does it, and so uh, you know, now that she's 16, she's got a car. Yeah, there's an expectation. You're going to work because I'm not paying your gas to go hang out with your friends, and I'm not. You're going to have to pay some of your insurance too. We don't obviously we don't make her pay all the whole insurance because that's a lot, but we expect, hey, we need your 20-30 bucks this month for to put toward your insurance, and we're putting that, she doesn't know it, we're putting that in her account, and so when she graduates college, it's like, here's all your money and stuff that you kind of paid for insurance and other little stuff.
Yeah, that's a good
Here's a
idea.
bag, give them a little, a little
Little
starter.
nest egg, little nest egg.
Yeah, and we're going to do that for all of them, especially when they use my GI Bill to go to college and they get their monthly stipend. uh we're going to turn around and put that in a, it's like, okay, nope, that comes to us because you're staying here and, going to college and everything. That comes to us. And then when they graduate college, be like, hey, here you go. We were putting in an account for you. And, here's some, get you started. Uh, so,
Do you guys know what a dowry is?
yeah, I mean, I've heard of them. They're big in the Indian.
Yeah, it used to be big everywhere. In the back in the 16th, 17th, 18th, and even 19th century a little bit. Uh, a dowry is back in the day was basically, and it still exists, definitely in Afghanistan, India too, Josh.
Oh
Yes,
yeah.
but if you are going to, if you're, marrying off a daughter is a big deal, back then and in certain countries. So sons are obviously, were valued way more than women for whatever reason. So if you're going to marry off your daughter, the expectation is you are going to pay the groom's family a certain amount of money or cattle, uh, camels, or whatever you're gonna pay them something, you know. So does the dowry exist? I remember in the '90s, I was in college, and one kid, he's pretty smart, he's pretty academic type of guy, and he'd say, well, what we considered smart stuff back then. He said back in the '90s, the modern day dowry is a car and a college education. But I don't know if that exists in our world anymore. As some or a few of you may or may not know, I have a new job, working in the private sector, working for the man, and I am telling you,
Yeah.
my industry is saturated with women, and the women that I work with, at least, are extremely competent, very competent, and they're very good at what they do, and they're also family women, most of them. They have kids and all this stuff, and they seem to manage their lifestyle pretty well, and they make really good money. I'm not going to say that. Don't anybody say that. So, but anyway, I'm just saying, you hear a lot about we need to move back to the nuclear family and stuff like that, and I talk about the dowry and all that stuff. So, question, Roger, do you think that, because you have daughters, does the dowry still exist in any form of fashion? Number one. That's the first question. Number two, I think it's been demonstrated that women in the workplace can make just as much or more than men if they're educated and if they work hard. That's question number two. Is that true or false? And question number three, is that a good or a bad thing?
So as far as a dowry exists, I think it does. I mean, and I think it's an ideological. Well, let me say it this way: it depends on the family, because generally speaking, at least with like us growing up, I assume like when my daughter gets married, and I think this is the way it's kind of is with my sister, that the her husband's family inherits her, and I know it's kind of an indirect thing, but they inherit her. Whereas just like with my son eventually gets married, we would inherit his wife. And so when we look at everything from us passing away and passing things down to the family and this and that, it does more, especially like with Korean tradition, everything goes to the firstborn son, period. Back in the day, it's a little bit different now, it's a little more modernized or whatever, because you bring in the lady to your family, and your daughter gets married away, right, into the other family, and so that dowry would be kind of be like, well, we now take in your daughter and are responsible, not only as the husband but as the parents of the husband, to ensure that the health and welfare of your daughter. So I think that would be probably the closest thing that we have, but that's based family to family, right? That's not everybody. That's just how my view of it. As far as the wages, and here's the thing, man, it's such an easy topic to argue about, uh, from a very, very macro level. Women are underpaid and this and that and da 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 da. Da. Hey, let me clue a lot of people in there, and Luke's finally figured this out now that he's a corporate guy, out in the commercial sector, private sector, no longer government. Businesses try to make money, right? And we make money by keeping more than we spend. And so I'll tell you this: I don't care whether you're a man or a woman. You know, I'm going to ask you, so hey, what's your salary expectation? Now I have a number in my head. Maybe it's 150. If you come back and say 130, hey, you know what? Done. 130. There you go. You know what? I may even give you 132 just to make you feel good about yourself. If the lady comes in and says 125, do you think I'm paying her 125 because she's a lady? No, I'm paying her 125 because she said that's what she wanted. And the same thing would work vice versa. If the guy was like, "Hey, I take 125," and again the number is 150 in my head, I would give him 125. And if the lady was like, "I wanted 130," and it's below what my target price is, my target salary, then I'm going to give her that. And our listeners know that. And when you go out there, I don't think I've ever, and I don't know, Josh may have a different experience. I've never gone anywhere, held any jobs where they're like, "Hey, here's the salary, and this is what you're going to make." It was kind of like, so what are you expecting? I mean, even when I was working at 15 and 16, you had the little application, and what did it say in there? What's the minimum salary you expect? And why do you think they do that? Because if they can pay you $14 an hour versus $15 an hour, that's more profit for the company. Now, I'm not saying there are certain people that for whatever reason, they're archaic and they underpay women, they underpay minorities. I mean, Katie Hobbs, our governor here in Arizona, underplayed, black women. Wouldn't Talanya Adams, I think was her name, wouldn't pay her the same as her colleagues. But especially when you get to the commercial and the private sector, it is about corporate profits. It's about the company making profits. So now Luke's asking, what does that have to do with males versus females? Wasn't that one of the questions that you asked? Wasn't that question number 2, or did I mishear that?
It is. I'm
You
sorry.
can
I was on mute. I'm sorry. I may have lost the plot right there. But why would a woman request less than a man? Because I get what you're saying with the profit and everything. I understand that. But
right.
are women expecting to
It's
make less? Like,
no, no. It's that, in studies have shown women are more agreeable than men.
okay.
So
But I think
again,
it's
when you,
also what they
Do you
need
think that
too, though,
that's
right?
no,
changing though? Do you think that that's changing in the culture now?
I don't
Because I
know.
mean,
I don't know that it's changing. I mean, there may be some anecdotal evidence out there that is changing, but the last studies. So Jordan Peterson did a big piece on this, and he laid out the studies and everything, and it comes down to a couple of things. Women are more agreeable than men, right? And so
yep,
I have
yep.
been right at my previous job. It was what are your salary expectations? This is what are your salary expectations? Okay, well, this is my expectation because I know what I'm worth. All right, well, we don't know if we can get there. It was like, okay, well, if you can't get there, then I'm not your guy, right? And I know a girl who worked on the cybersecurity team, and we got to talking one day, and it was about salary. And again, anecdotal, but it fits into it. It correlates back to these studies. There's like, well, and again, it's never appropriate to discuss each other's salaries and what you're getting paid. But I get something completely different than what she did, so it wasn't that big of a deal. And it was, well, no, this is what they offered, and so I just took it. Okay, well, I didn't take what I was offered. I said no. we're a little far apart, right? So women are more agreeable than men, and this is and again this comes out of the studies, and also men are men are a lot more aggressive than than women. You take the most aggressive woman and the most aggressive man, they are going to be still be there's going to be a lot of daylight between those two men. There's a lot of and we were talking about CEOs of Fortune 500 companies. Those men are super driven, super driven. When and there's women out there that are driven, but not at the same percentage as men are. You take a look at a lot of the high paying jobs now. There's a lot of high paying jobs out there in the blue collar sector. I don't see any women that are demanding, equal pay when it comes to being stonemasons, when it comes to being electricians, when it comes to
Yeah.
hey, the guy climbing the tower to change the light bulb on top of the cell tower near your house. I don't see women clamoring to do that job. Those guys are making 150K a year. And so
Far. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
the gender pay gap is a myth. It's a
Well,
100% myth.
far be it from me to disagree with the genius uh, Jordan Peterson, but the gender pay gap is there for a reason. It exists. I had this conversation with my daughter when she was going into her freshman year at Texas Tech, and I'll never forget. We were in a hotel room, and we were talking about the gender pay gap, right? And I was like, "Yeah, of course, there's a gender pay gap because men and women are different, especially in the professional realm." Now, let me caveat before I go on my soapbox here and say that now that we have maternity leave and companies are willing to pay that, and God forbid the federal government gets in and starts paying for maternity leave, that's going to create that type of thing creates an artificiality. Okay, because men and women are different. That's why I do agree with Jordan Peterson. Women are nurturers, men are hunters and more aggressive and things like that. That's why you have the CEOs. And to y'all's point, it's what you're saying. But let's just take it on a micro level where it's like, okay, so you have a man and a woman in the same exact job, both married to the love of their lives, healthy marriage, everything. The man gets his, the man and the wife, the man in the same job gets his wife pregnant. Okay. The man doesn't, there is no interruption in his job, zero. He continues on. And let's say at the exact same time, his female colleague also gets pregnant. Okay. A few things happen at this point. Let's say that she is allowed maternity leave. She's allowed to go on 3 or 4 or how many ever months it is maternity leave. That man keeps working. He keeps gaining skills, he keeps gaining management experience, so on and so forth. He becomes more marketable within that corporation or wherever he's working. The woman is on maternity leave. She's not doing anything except taking care of that baby. And I'm not saying that's necessarily a bad thing. It's the way it is. Okay. At the end of that 4 months or whatever it is, that man is actually more marketable than the woman. And my daughter was just going crazy. She's like, well, that's not fair. I was like, well, life's not fair. That's just the way it is. He is more competitive in his field because he has been working 4 months longer. Now, let's say that woman has 3 kids. That is a full year out of the workforce where that man has been competing along the way and making the connections. We all know how people get promoted within corporations. It just happens. And a lot of women, after they have their first kid, many at least, drop out of the workforce because they realize I'm a mother, I'm a mom. This is what I'm going to do now. And I applaud that. That is not a bad thing. That's what I was telling my daughter. It's like that is something that is designed into your genetic code. You're trying to relate it to some kind of pay gap. It just is, man. And it's not necessarily, yes, the fact that men are more aggressive and we're hunters and all this stuff and we're out in the fields and we're not necessarily nurturers. Yes, that has a lot to do with it, but that's not the complete explanation behind modern corporate America, at least until 2010. So that's my soapbox.
Yeah.
I think that. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, yeah. The aggressiveness, the assertiveness. in the disagreeable. That's not the whole picture. I mean, like you said, between about 28 and 30, from about 28 to 32, women have a crisis. They have that crisis of, okay, am I going to be a professional? Am I going to have a professional career, or am I going to have a family? They have to get that work life balance in order in between 28 and 32. That's when that's when men start hitting their stride in their professional, whatever profession that they're in. Women have to get the pieces of their life, they have to get those together a lot quicker than we do, because they have that, they they have that, that crisis in their late 20s, early 30s, and they have to make that choice. Like you said, am I going to be, what's that work life balance, work family balance? Am I going to be a mom, or am I going to be a career professional? Now, there's some women that can be both. Those are outliers, right? And we're talking about, we're not talking about anecdotal evidence. We're talking about the empirical evidence. And so they make that choice. All right, what am I going to do? Men don't have to get the pieces of their life, together as quick as women do. They, women got to figure it out a lot quicker than us. And that's, hey, guess what? I didn't choose to be born a dude. All right. And it's not that, it's not that, it's not much, it's not that easier to be a man. All right. And people are like, oh, male privilege. Okay. So let's talk about male privilege. Who are the most, who are the most people that are incarcerated? They're men. Who commit suicide the most? Men. Who die in war the most? Men. All right. So where exactly, who is more likely to be homeless? Men. So where is this, where's the male privilege at? I,
Because we're
I,
married to women.
you know,
well, it's just,
so
Josh, what pisses me off about this whole thing, especially what you were saying in the first half of your comments, is anytime you say stuff like that, women are nurturers, they between 28 and 32, they've got to do this, this and that. That is seen in the modern culture as like, that's a slight. That's an insult. I don't see it like that. I see it's like, dude, you're the ones who nurture the kids who are going to actually, produce in society. It's like, that's a compliment. But it's seen nowadays as, oh, well, you're calling women weak. No, we're not calling them weak. Being a mom is way harder than being a dad. It just is. You guys may disagree, but being a nurturer, taking care of kids, I'm sitting here trying to take care of dogs right now. I can barely do that. I mean, women have like superpowers. I think is it Jordan Peterson who says, or Joe Rogan? It's like women have superpowers. They grow a body inside of their own. It comes out of theirs, and then they nurture it until it's 18 and ready to go out on its own. It's like all this stuff, like what you said, between 28 and 32, they have this imperative, right? That's seen as like a slight on women. It's not. It's just
no,
genetic. It's just how we're wired. We need to get
yeah,
out of this whole process of seeing this whole nurturing children and being a woman is a bad thing.
it's
Bullshit.
not, dude. It's absolutely, it's not a bad thing. Like you said, it's science. It is science. It is how, it's just the difference in men and women. It's not a bad thing. It's not a, it's not derogatory. It's science. It is what it is. Like you said, it's how we're wired. And we got away from the nuclear family. It's super difficult being a mom, you and you guys can attest to this too. I spent a lot of days away from home. My job away from home, while it was stressful at times, it was easy because I had my routine. I got up, I did what I needed to do, I did my job, and then I went to bed. I had to take care of me, and yeah, I might take care of some other Joes and stuff like that, but by and large, like, I just had to take care of me and get my job done. The wife's at home. You're half a world away, often out of unreachable. Um, and she's juggling, probably work. She's juggling kids. She's juggling dinner. People made my dinner. I showed up and walked through the chow line with my tray and got it and went and sat down and shoved chicken nuggets in my face, and that was that. Yeah, no, it's absolutely difficult being a mom, and I would say it's more difficult being a mom than a dad, but there's different stressors, right? As a dad, my main stress was, can I pay my mortgage this month? Is my family going to have a roof over their head? They're going to have clothes on their back, and are they going to have food on their table? Because that's my job. That's my responsibility, right? I don't expect my wife to do that because that's not her responsibility. Can she do it? Sure, more than capable, 100%. but that's not her responsibility. That's my responsibility. She should not have to do that. I should do that. And so we got away from that, for a lot of reasons, and the destruction of the nuclear family and everything. And I think that's one of the main reasons why this country has a lot of the problems that it has, is because we got away from the nuclear family. And I think some people might try and crucify me for this, but the Civil Rights Act, when we implemented a bunch of these welfare programs, and got away from that and said the government can step in and take care of the family and be the family. That I think that was absolutely the wrong answer, and I think that's what sent us down the path that we're on now. So that's my thought on it.
Yeah, and we brought this up before with Barry. That to me, that was the biggest failure of Barry's administration, was he took away your right to fail and your ability to fail, because the government's going to be there to pick you up. Going back to the male, man, woman, the gender pay gap and this and that. Here's my problem with us, and this is kind of what I was getting at before. Is they everybody, not everybody, but a lot of the folks on the left, or those that believe in the gender pay gap, they want to paint this broad picture that all women are underpaid because we're all chauvinistic pigs, and we think that women, we don't value women and their efforts as much as men. And it's different based on each family, because another, and I agree with everything that you said and everything that Luke said. Another thing that you can add to this is the salary requirements of the individual. And you kind of touched a lot on this, Josh. As and this, I know it's more of a traditionalist view, but historically, like, the man was the bread earner, right?
Yep.
They're the ones that went out there and made the money, that paid the bills, paid the mortgage, this and that. And again, I get it. There's a percentage where it's vice versa, but for the most part, historically, the man was the bread earner. And so, as a man, you tried to make as much as you could. Period. And I think that leads a lot to that aggressiveness, right? Like, hey man, if I want my wife to have the nicest house or the nicer house and a new car, and this, I need to make as much money as I possibly can. And I think a lot of times, and again, this is case by case basis, you can't look at it at such a macro level. A lot of times, especially when you look at when women started really entering the workforce, it wasn't, well, I don't necessarily need to make as much to pay the mortgage. I just need to make as much money to provide for a nice vacation for our family. Whereas Josh, like, hey man, I need to go out and I need to make 150, man, because that's what I got to make to support my family and my kids. And the wife might just be looking at, hey, I just need to make enough that we can take that nice vacation, that we can go to Disney World or get that second car or whatever. And it's not that you don't value her effort and this and that, but I think a lot of times, sometimes, the aggressiveness may not be there because it's not needed. Hey, I don't need to make 150K a year. I really only need to make 65 or 70. And now on the backside of that comes in, corporate America, like we were talking about, where, hey, they're going to try to pay as low as they can, based, regardless whether you're male, female, whatever the case is. But it goes back to individual requirements and the family requirements, right? So I think everything that both of you said was absolutely correct. And going back to Josh's thing with the Civil Rights Act, I mean, you know, when Barry took away your right to fail, and and you're seeing it even today, with, it tends to be the Democrat platform lately is, hey man, government's got you. We saw it during COVID, and during COVID, it wasn't just Democrats. We saw Republicans as well. Government's got you. The government's going to take care of you. And I tell you what, man, we see it now all the time, and I know you guys see it as well. But I don't know that we'll recover from this thing for another decade.
So
What?
one last thought on this, and I'll give it to you, Luke. It's like the aggressiveness. It's not, it's not that women don't choose, or it's not that women choose not to have it. By and large, it's not. It's not there. It's not in their genetic code. Could you take a look at it? When men are aggressive, let's say, we are aggressive toward another male. How does that generally manifest itself? It generally manifests itself in physical violence. All right. When we have an issue with another male, a lot of times it comes out, and there's a Donnybrook. All right. When women have a lot of aggression toward another female, that manifests itself into reputational destruction and gossip. All right. Well, she's a
And a
slut.
kitchen
She,
knife.
yeah, yeah. Every now and then, you get Tanya Harding, or you get Nancy Kerrigan, or whichever one it is. right? So, but it's not that they choose not to. It's just it's not in their DNA to be as aggressive as males. By and large, males are just genetically wired to be more aggressive than women. It's not a
So
slight. It's
does
not a
that
bad thing.
change? Is that fluid? Does that change if you identify as the opposite sex, or how does that work?
I don't know.
Oh God,
I
here we
identify
go.
to be less aggressive.
Let me get my slide rule out for this.
Yeah.
So sick of that shit.
So
So,
that's my last thought on that.
59 years ago, Josh and Roger, 59 years ago, 9 years before I was born, uh, one of the best political speeches ever was given, in my opinion, and that was the Evil Empire speech by Ronald Reagan, 1964, for Barry Goldwater at the Republican National Convention. And 59 years ago, Ronald Reagan gave an anecdote about a woman he talked to who was getting a divorce because she would get more money from the federal government if she was a single mom rather than married. So this is not necessarily a new problem. It's just exacerbated now. It's awfully awfully worse than it was back then. But you take that speech, and I encourage the audience, man, if you've never heard that speech, type in 1964 Ronald Reagan, Barry Goldwater, or just Ronald Reagan 1964, and that speech will come up on YouTube, and you should sit down and listen to it because you could change a few things from that speech and apply it directly to today. Everything still applies. Brilliant political speech. You guys know the one I'm talking about, right? I listen
Yep.
to that at least once a month. At least once a month. I wish I could memorize it. I just don't have time. But yeah, perhaps I misspoke. Just listening to you guys talk as I'm checking on those damn dogs. Perhaps I misspoke when I said being a mom is way harder than being a dad. It's hard in a different way, and it's hard in a way that men cannot, that I can't understand. Because I can't imagine putting myself in that place, and vice versa. Women can't imagine. Well, maybe they can't imagine it, but they can't really relate because they're women. They're not men. They can't relate to the certain stressors that we have to provide for the family because that is hardwired into us as well. The protection, the safety. And Roger said earlier today, we were talking about, well, man, dude, what if you made $450,000 a year or whatever? And I was saying, well, I'd work for 3 years and I'd be done. I'd never have to work again. It's like, nope, no, you wouldn't, because you'd find different things that you quote unquote need, right? And that's hardwired into us as well. It's like, well, my wife says she needs that. I got to provide for my wife. And it's just like my family and all that stuff. It's hardwired into us. So perhaps I misspoke when I said that. So we've BS now for over an hour, and Roger's just chomping at the bit. I know he is. I know he is. He wants to talk about current affairs or politics or.
No, actually, you know what? What I was thinking of when you said Ronald Reagan's speech in 1964 and how you can change a couple words and you get modern day situation. Have you guys heard the remake of "We Didn't Start the Fire" by Fall Out Boy?
No.
Oh yeah,
Wait, but
came
by
out.
who?
Fall Out Boy.
Fall Out Boy. It's a local band,
The hell is
modern
that?
band. Not
Fall Out Boy.
listen to it because they take everything that Billy Joel did and and it's pretty cool because when I remember hearing the song the first time from Billy Joel, right? The whole premise is, hey, we didn't start the fire. It's always been there. Today's problems are not unique. They have always been there. They're cyclical, and you go back through history, and it just continues to repeat itself. And I heard it the first time a couple weeks ago, and same tune and same melody and everything. Just obviously the words are replaced with modern day issues, and you guys need to listen to it after we record. It's
that's
it's
on the
pretty good.
list. Did we talk about, speaking of songs, did we talk about yeah, I think we did. I think we talked about Richmond, north of Richmond, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
We talked a little bit about it. I actually have that in my notes because did you hear that Oliver Anthony turned down one of the concerts because of what they were charging for ticket prices?
Yes,
I
saw that.
The Cotton Eye Joe concert.
Yeah, he's turning out to be like very principled.
Do you know
right?
people drug him on Twitter for that? Cernovich being one of them, like drug him on Twitter because well, yeah, no, I agree. But they said they were like, oh, well, he doesn't understand basic economics because the venue has to make money and this, that, and the other. And it's like, well, a couple things, right? One, that dude came out very principled. He turned down an offer, at the very beginning, right? That was, a little bit more than the 120K. He has been doing concerts for free, and he's like, whatever. But at the same time, it's like,
It was like
dude,
8 million, wasn't it? Wasn't it like a $8 million
I don't,
record
yeah,
label
I don't,
offer or something like that?
yeah, I don't know how much it
Well, he's
was, but
had
I
a
mean, it was a
lot. He's had a
significant
lot
amount
of
of money. It
offers.
was a significant amount of money. I would not have been as principled as he is. I would have probably taken that payday. Let's just say I would have probably taken that payday. But but the second thing is, it's like, dude, this guy, the song that he made it in his backyard. I mean, a couple weeks ago, this guy didn't know anything, about business or anything like that, and all of a sudden, you're expecting him to be like, well, he didn't play that right. It's like, dude, come on, like give the guy
This
a break.
2 hours before he recorded that song, the famous recording where it looks like he's
Yeah,
outside. 2 hours, he wasn't even done with the lyrics. He wasn't even finished with the lyrics, and he's like, I don't know. They're like, no, we're gonna record this one and a couple others, a couple of the other ones he has. He was not
that's
even done
crazy.
with his lyrics, and he came on Rogan. Y'all know I'm crushing on Rogan. You should listen to that. The guy, my wife and I were listening to it on our way down to Tombstone Roger, and my wife is just like, this guy is like really smart. He is super well spoken. I'm like, what are you doing a Joe Biden, Barack Obama on me right now? What do you expect? What did you expect? It's like, well, you listen to this song, you listen to his voice, you wouldn't think I'm like, well, here he is. This guy, I don't know. One of our part-time listeners, Jesse, part-time, he listens to like one out of every 10 episodes. Piece of garbage. But anyway, he was like, this is going to spark a movement. And I'm like, they're going to label him as a bad guy and all this stuff. I don't think it's going to spark a movement, but I do think it's a piece of something that people really want. And not necessarily from, if you're talking like people who are politically active, right and left, like we're politically active. And people who are politically active on the left, it's not going to move them. But people who have traditionally voted Democrat in a depressed area, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Virginia, south of Richmond, it
They'll
might
keep
move
voting
them.
Democrat.
I don't know. I
No,
think.
you go back and take
I
a
mean,
look
they
at
will. They
Appalachia.
will in the short term. But
Go back
man,
and take a look at Appalachia.
things are
Look,
not good right now.
look at how Appalachia voted in the presidential election in 2000, and then go take a look at how people in Appalachia voted in the 2020 presidential election. Appalachia used to be very, very blue. It was very blue, right? And it was a lot of those Southern Democrats,
Yep.
in there because, welfare programs, unions, coal mines, everything. 2020 Appalachia minus, a few areas, very red. People in Appalachia, they have figured it out. That at the end of the day, the Democrats are not their friends. Now, that being said, and we talked about this when they played that to open up the first
Mm-hmm.
primary debates. It was like, you idiots don't get it. He's talking about you too,
Yep.
right?
100%. And no one
It-
talked.
no one figured that.
Big
No
miss.
one figured that out.
Big miss.
And
Big
yes,
miss.
any one of those candidates up there could have, dude. They could have picked up 10 points right at
That's
that
a
very
Vivek-
second.
That's a Vivek line he should throw out. He's talking about you guys too.
Yes,
Yeah.
What he should have said.
dude. 10,
And that's
dude,
it.
10-point bump right before the debates are even over. They'd be like, hey, he's
Yep.
talking about y'all. All you career politicians stand up here on stage. He's talking about you too. You guys, you don't get behind that song because he's talking about you. Dude, that was
None of them. None of them knew how to answer that question.
softball.
None of them.
And everyone
Softball.
whipped on it.
And it's like, who is advising these people? And you guys know, I mean, we like Christina Pushaw and everything, but it's like, come on. I mean, even if you didn't anticipate it to be a question, you should have known. Number one song in the country by a far. Come on, address this. Say something about the song. Hey, I know y'all have heard this song, Richmond. I mean, come on. How much are these people getting paid? And C3, we're a nonprofit over here.
I don't know, and I don't know where they're missing it at or what they can't. I don't know how they're missing it, but you just test the waters on pretty much any social media platform, and a lot of folks hate both sides of the aisle, a lot.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, dude, you could pick up people hate the left because they're communists and because they want to, molest little kids. People hate the right because they have no spine. They're not doing anything. They're like, oh, well, we're going to have a hearing on this. It's like, oh, okay, you're not doing anything. It's like, there's a really easy way to pick up those voters. You say, hey, Oliver Anthony, he's singing about everybody. He's singing about everybody up here. Yeah, they missed the boat on that one for sure. So
I want to send this to Roger, and I know Josh is just gonna like his skin is gonna melt off when I bring this up. So I don't know. I haven't heard any word on the street. I think I would have heard it by now because I think we're 13 days away from the next GOP debate, right? And I haven't heard any rumblings about Trump being a part of it. And as we've discussed, he's still so far in the lead, it still doesn't make sense for him to show up, right? He can only get hurt. So my question is, are Dana Perino and whoever's going to host with her, are they going to have the cojones to actually go after Trump on the COVID thing, on his, because there's that debate, right? Okay, Trump was behind Fauci, and Josh sent out the thing today that Trump was like, well, I don't know who gave him the Presidential Medal of Freedom. It's do you think that they'll go after Trump on this next debate at all? Because Trump didn't come up really at all in the last debate. Not well, it did.
No,
It did a little bit, but not as much as it could have.
no, because you got half the stage that were in some type of leadership position that advocated for the same things and don't want to talk about it, and then you got the other half that weren't involved in government and they're the ones that should be bringing it up, right? I mean, that, Josh talks about softballs. That's another softball, man. If I'm the business guy or Vivek or any of those guys, of course he's made his own, statements that come back and haunt him. But if I was not in a position of leadership in the government, that's something that I want to bring up. I mean, I would want that put out there. And I think you have to, like Harris Faulkner says, you got to bring receipts on that. This is what Trump did. This is what he did. Hey, Ron, this is what you did. Hey, whatever, other government, this is what you did. Here's what your COVID response was. Because the reality is every state shut down. Okay. Arizona shut down for 4 weeks or whatever. Florida shut its schools down before New York did, right? Everybody did. So I think that's an opportunity there that if you are an outsider or were an outsider, not in a position of leadership, that you bring that up. Because I would use that to poke, Tim Scott in the in the eyeball. I mean, you look at Nikki Haley. I mean, because she wasn't in any position, right? So as far as authority to be able to do anything like that or advocate for it. So, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. So if I'm her, I bring that up and I want that to be discussed because I think there's a lot there. One thing about a sitting, and we've talked about this before with sitting governors, there's past performance there. Hey, same thing with former presidents, right? There's a lot of past performance there. And I think there was a lot of, there's a lot of good things that Trump did, but there's a lot of things that he did that I didn't necessarily agree with. And when you get up on that debate stage, you have to have the cojones to throw it out there. Bring the receipts. No, this is exactly what he said. This is exactly what he did. You've got record of it. It's hard to, it's like, I'm not a huge, I forget the guy's name. He interviewed Vivek talking about his law school and the Soros foundations and this. It's like, no, I've got your recording. I've got the transcripts. I've got the video of what you said and how much you earn in this. You bring that stuff and you throw it out there. And that's what those folks have to do. I mean, I don't think Dana Perino and them will throw it out there, but if you're the other candidate, man, you got to get them out there.
Whatever. They can bring up Trump. They're not going to bring up Trump because they don't want to give him any free airtime. If he's not on that stage,
he's already, and the thing is though, today he topped out at, I saw in the Fox poll, 60 points now, 60%. No way that dude shows up.
It's, and I'm almost to the point. I hope Trump is the nominee. I'm at the point where I hope Trump is the nominee because the only way to get these people to understand a little bit of reason is to watch him get destroyed in the general. Just watch it. I mean, just watch him get destroyed like he did in 2020. And so they can all go. Oh, it was rigged. It was this. It was that. And because by the time 2028 rolls around, he's aged out. It'll be done, and then we can move on because people aren't going to let this go. People aren't going to get off the damn Trump train, even though they should. knowing that he can't win a general election. He can't do it. And they would rather have Trump be the nominee than to have somebody who can actually beat Biden or beat Gavin Newsom, who may be replacing Biden, right? They would rather that. So, okay, that's fine. Let's just go ahead. Let's do this little experiment. Have Trump be the nominee. He gets destroyed in the general in 2024, and then he's aged out in 2028, and it's not an issue anymore. And then we can just move on. That's what needs to happen.
We'll move on, but those people won't learn anything. I don't get how he's 60 points ahead. I don't get it. Because I'm with you, Josh. I mean, I understand, Roger. I understand your point of view. I got it, and I understand that you see a path to possible victory in the general. I understand, but I just don't see how people aren't like any one of those other. Well, not anyone. A lot of those other folks on stage have a much better chance, even though the polls don't reflect it. I don't buy it. I don't think anybody's going to learn anything, Josh. I agree with you. I agree with everything you said, but I don't think anybody's going to learn anything, especially these people who are, MAGA, 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 no matter what he says, no matter what he does. And not like Roger, because Roger said it a second ago. He's like, I didn't agree with everything the guy did. There are people out there that are like, I agree with every single thing the guy did. And it's like, I know Eric's like sitting there and like, Eric's like, next time I see this dude, I'm going to shank him because Eric loves Trump. And I love Eric. And I understand Eric. I love Trump too. I think he was a great president. But dude, I just don't. This is where I've got that cognitive dissonance that I had in, what year was that? 2012. I had that cognitive dissonance with Mitt Romney after he won that first debate.
Jesus.
After he won that first debate, because Romney did kick Obama's ever-loving ass in that first debate. I was like, oh, there's a new president. And I had that cognitive dissonance. And then when he won, when Obama won and I was in Afghanistan, I was like, oh man, I'm way out of touch here. And I feel like I'm way out of touch again with these polls with Trump at 60%. I'm just like, I'm out of touch. And speaking of which, Josh and Roger, Mitt Romney called it quits.
Yeah, I saw that. Right? He's going to throw his name in the hat for POTUS.
Romney?
Yeah. He's got, dude, Mitt Romney has something up his sleeve. He's not leaving the Senate because of people like JD Vance, like he said. He is not leaving the damn Senate for that. People like Mitt Romney don't willingly give up power on principles. It does not happen. And
remember Roger, a few episodes ago, who did I say? And I said it. I said I got to go. I got to go find the game tape. I called that crap.
I'm telling you, Roger did. Roger did call it.
This guy on his way out the door, I heard it tonight. He slammed not everybody. He slammed people in his own party. Who does that on their way out the door? I don't trust JD Vance as far as I can throw. And he had like 3 or 4 other names. It's like, you piece of freaking garbage. You're not even a rhino. If you were a rhino, at least, well, not a rhino. You're not even close to a Republican, because what's the Reagan rule, right? It's like, why? Okay. Mitt Romney is on my garbage list. He's way worse than John McCain. And I will shut up. That guy grates on me.
Because he's trying to pull votes from the left. What he's hoping is a Romney-Biden general election, and people on the right would be like, well, hell, I got to vote for the Republican. I'll vote for Romney. And if I cater to the left, I'll get those independents and those left-leaning voters that aren't happy with the last 4 years of Biden. That's exactly what he's doing.
Yeah. People like Mitt Romney do not give up power on principle.
He's delusional. Nope. He's delusional, just like Mike Pence
is
delusional.
He's delusional.
All the left has to do is say he's Mormon. He doesn't believe in transgenderism. He's a freaking moron. He's
as delusional as the people who believe the polls where they say, oh, well, this poll shows that Trump is polling 20% with the African American community. He's as delusional as the people who believe that poll. Because there is no way Trump is polling at 20% with the African American community. Not happening.
Oh, but Josh, no, you remember the motorcade after he was indicted, or he went through, a hood that pulled all the black vote. You remember that? Come
Those
on,
people,
bro.
dude, those people
Jeez.
don't understand that community. They don't. They don't understand that community. They were there not to support Trump. They were there because it was their 5 seconds to get on TV, and it was their 5 seconds just to see something other than black kids shooting each other. That was it. That's it. They weren't out there in the streets to support Trump. The same poll said Trump was polling 20% with them in 2020. How did that work out? He damn sure didn't pull it. So, yeah.
So, what do you guys think about and one of our listeners, Dan, he hit us up on Slack the other day and talked about it. But you have the impeachment inquiry, okay, and then you have the Hunter Biden indictment today on federal gun charges. So I'll kick it over to Josh first. So thoughts on either one of those, and does that help or hurt Biden in his reelection
It, it,
campaign?
it,
Which I still say he's not going to make it,
it
but does
helps
it
him.
help or hurt?
It helps him in his reelection campaign because it shows, Biden, hey, I'm a rule of law guy. No one is above the law. And it also helps Biden because now that Hunter has been indicted, I don't know that Congress can subpoena him to come testify in an impeachment hearing trial. I mean, granted, I know it's not about the impeachment. It's not about the gun, but Hunter is an integral part of the whole impeachment hearing. And I don't know that him being indicted, I don't know that he can go testify now. I don't know. Again, I'm not a lawyer and I don't play one on TV, but I think there may be some nuances there that he can now say, you know what, my lawyers, you can't legally make me come testify because I've been indicted, on related charges, blah blah blah, whatever. So, but I think it helps Biden.
Yeah.
It's all
How about you,
calculated.
Luke?
So with the indictment of Hunter, I think that on the gun charges, that's not what we want him for, right? Gun charges
Right.
just
Right.
that's a cherry on top. I'm getting is a cherry. I wanted a sundae. The gun charges is a piece of bread thrown to the crowd, thrown to the ravenous crowd. It gives me no satisfaction whatsoever. So you said the indictment and the impeachment, right? So the impeachment of Biden.
Yeah,
Well, it's the
the
impeachment
inquiry.
inquiry. Well,
Inquiry.
they can't do an inquiry without doing an impeachment. I think we've all heard that on talk radio today. It's like if you open up an impeachment inquiry and then come back and say, "Oh, well, we didn't find enough to impeach him," well, then he's exonerated. So this will go into an impeachment, and does it mean anything? Of course not, because they don't have the votes in the Senate. So it's just this is all a dog and pony show. And you know when this started? It didn't start with Nixon. It didn't start with Clinton. This started with the Democrats and Trump. And as we've all been hearing, all the talking heads, at least on the conservative side, say, you know, all these people on the left are saying, "Where's the evidence? Where's the evidence? Where's the evidence?" It's like, dude, there's evidence everywhere. What I learned today, actually, I learned something today, is that circumstantial evidence. Okay. Everybody's like, "Oh, well, that's just circumstantial." You see that in the movies all the time. Oh, that's circumstantial evidence. You guys realize that if there are fingerprints on a gun, or if there are fingerprints on shell casings, in a murder case, that's circumstantial evidence. That is not direct evidence. So what
Yep.
all these reporters are asking Republicans is, do you have any direct evidence? These Republicans are afraid to say, no, we've got circumstantial evidence and we've got a lot of it. Okay, so all these people saying there's no evidence, that's wrong. There's a lot of evidence of Joe Biden's involvement in business dealings with Hunter Biden. The Burisma thing and so on and so forth. 10% of the big guy, 10% to the big guy. That is all circumstantial evidence, and circumstantial evidence actually does mean something. It's not nothing. So whenever your friends or people you're talking to, oh, that's just circumstantial evidence. Well, yeah, but it's still evidence. It still counts. But back to your question, I don't know. There's so much of a cognitive dissonance nowadays with with both sides. Everything is so fractured right down the middle. I don't know. Just like with Trump with his indictments, it's not going to make any difference. I think that people will see that Joe Biden is under an impeachment. His poor son, he just loves his son. He's being persecuted. You know, people on both sides are just going to dig their heels in even more, and I just don't know if it moves the needle at all. I don't at this point. I don't know what exactly moves the needle other than a freaking depression or a nuclear war. You know, that's how I see it. Maybe you guys can change my mind.
Now, let me ask Josh, another question on this thing. So why even have an impeachment inquiry, right? Because Congress can subpoena anybody they want, right? Because to me, the only objective that you have for the impeachment inquiry is to get facts and get them out to the public for the election. Because he's not going to be impeached, like Luke said, it doesn't happen. It's not going to make it to the Senate. You're not going to get the votes. I want the dirty business dealings put out there as fact. This happened. That's the goal. That should be the goal of the GOP. And so instead of calling it an impeachment inquiry, why not just subpoena everybody? Like, seriously, why not just subpoena Hunter Biden? Right? Bring him to the floor. I mean, why do you think the GOP is so scared? I would subpoena every member of Biden's family. I mean, Josh, why do you think the GOP is so scared to take aggressive actions like that? They've been doing it to Trump. They continue to do it to Trump, which, by the way, on another note, the Fulton County judge just said, oh, by the way, all of the 19 defendants have to be tried separately. So good luck, Willis. We'll see how that works out over the next 3 years. But why doesn't the GOP use the authority they have? You don't even have to don't even call it impeachment. Just start subpoenaing people and get the info out.
Well, there's a lot of reasons the GOP they won't subpoena people. I mean, for starters, they have no spawn, right? And their messaging is broken, like we've said many times. I mean, and Luke brings up a great point when a lot of these folks, whether they're in the Senate or the House, they get asked a question about direct evidence and circumstantial evidence. Half of these people are law graduates from Harvard, Yale, Ivy League schools, but yet they can't tell you, like Luke said, that fingerprints on a gun, that's not direct evidence, right? They can't tell you that DNA at a crime scene is not direct evidence. So when they say, well, is there direct evidence? The easy answer is, well, no, there's no direct evidence, but fingerprints on a gun by law are not direct evidence either. But it doesn't mean it shouldn't be invested. It doesn't mean I shouldn't come looking for you and have some questions for you. That's why we're going to subpoena him, right? The messaging, and again, I don't get it. We are. Well, I'll say me. I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer, but some common sense and being able to, just do some due diligence and being able to answer some questions, it's not that difficult. It's really not. So there's a lot of reasons why they don't do it. And when people, like Luke said, when your friends ask you, well, where's the evidence at? Okay, well, there's witness testimony from Devin Archer. You have statements from Tony Bubulinski. You have text from Hunter Biden's computer. You have WhatsApps from Hunter Biden's computer. You have Joe Biden's statement on leveraging the ouster of Viktor Shokin in Ukraine. Remember, he's on video saying, got that son of a bitch fired, right? And you have the unexplained income to Joe Biden. And then basically you have Joe Biden's entire life, which has been nothing but corruption and lies. Right. So I don't know. Grand juries have indicted people for less, much less. So when people ask you where the evidence is, tell them to stop having, that big level of cognitive dissonance and, just take a look at the facts. Back to Luke's point real quick, Roger, before I do this. When it finally came out, remember when Zuckerberg went on Rogan and got his ass handed to him about the Hunter Biden laptop? The poll afterward, it was something crazy. And I don't know how many people they polled, and I can't remember, but it was almost 80% of people polled said that had the Hunter Biden laptop story not been suppressed, they would have changed their vote in 2020.
Right.
Almost 80%. That's a lot. And so you take a look at, however many people they polled and, at scale, dude, that's a lot. That may have changed the election. So Luke, would it move the needle? Yeah, I wouldn't say no. It may.
Maybe. You're right. You're right. I mean, maybe it is something like that. And in that circuit court judgment, Josh, it was this week, I think it was, and I can't believe this isn't a bigger news story that, I mean, the circuit court ruled that the federal government
Yep.
actually suppressed First Amendment rights
Yeah.
across social media platforms as a general rule. And it's like,
Yeah.
when the fuck, Hunter Biden laptop aside, Josh, Hunter laptop aside, and how that would swing votes. I guess I get blackpilled when I'm like, how come nobody's covering this? This fifth, I think it's a Fifth Circuit. How come nobody's covering that? I mean, the federal government suppressed the speech of maybe hundreds of millions of people. It's like, that's why I'm like, okay, the needle moves on Hunter Biden's laptop. Cool. I'm okay with that. But it's like, how come people are more mad? I'm sorry. I cut you off and you had a point and you were on fire.
No. You're, in fact, it was perfect, because that just dovetails in my next point. Not only did the federal government actively violate people, a lot of folks' First Amendment rights, they sent a memo to U.S. news organizations today, directing them, telling them that they need to ramp up their scrutiny on the impeachment proceedings.
Yeah, that was the White House. The
White House. When in the hell did we? I was like, say, well, the White House can issue talking points to the media. When, like, is that where we're at now? Like, the mask is off, and nobody, and people, and people. It was not the biggest news story of today, which was absolutely crazy. People on social media are still talking about the Democratic candidate in Virginia that's got her OnlyFans with her husband, selling pictures of her feet and everything else. It's like, honestly, I don't care. I don't care about her. I don't care about that. If that's what she wants to do, that's fine. I care more about the White House. I care more about the most powerful person in the free world sending a letter to the U.S. media telling them what they will cover and what they will do. Their job. I care more about that than this chick. But Americans are largely stupid, and they're more worried about, well, where's the sanctity and the dignity in office if we elect her? It's like, what? You still think there's sanctity? You still think there's dignity in elected offices? Are you effing high? Have you not been paying attention? Like I said, since at least the '60s, when JFK was banging Marilyn Monroe in the Oval. Come on. We're worried about this chick because she's got an OnlyFans. Who cares? Honestly, who cares at this point? That's what we're worried about. Whatever.
Yeah, I lost a lot of respect for Harris Faulkner today. I get to listen to the news all day, and I honestly I shut it off around noon. But she was like, or maybe it was yesterday. She was like, well, if someone's subscribing to, because I think Harris Faulkner is super smart, and she's like, well, if someone's subscribing to OnlyFans, and they're paying to see a sexual act, isn't that prostitution? I was like, hey, STFU, come on. So Roger's been strangely quiet.
He's mad. He's mad because we dug on Trump a little bit.
Oh no, I already told you who I was voting for in the primary. It's just funny, going off what Josh was saying. These people that are like, oh my Lord, I can't believe, the dignity, the lack of dignity. 50 Shades of Grey sold $35 million, or 35 million books in the U.S. Cardi B sold 100 million units in the U.S. Songs, albums, this and that. So these, and that's what we were talking about earlier today. It's like these same people that say that. It's like, show me your Apple playlist. You got one Cardi B song on there or one Nicki Minaj song on there?
Jay-Z.
Because that covers over 2/3. Jay-Z, you just covered 2/3 of the American population. I don't even want to hear it. Right? I don't even want to hear it because, I've got a little bit of all that stuff on there. So it's, dude, it's like you said, I couldn't care less what that chick does. It's Democrat, Republican, or whatever. That's not what I care about. When it comes down to the violation of First Amendment rights, here's what worries me about all that stuff. Okay. Now, the remedy for all of that is obviously voting, but there's got to be another way to hold these folks accountable. They're like, no, and I'm not kidding you. This is not hyperbole or anything like that. They need to have a class action lawsuit. I mean, literally, there needs to be, if we got any lawyer friends out there that listen to our show, heaven forbid. But it's like, because dude, I think you could argue, look at our stuff that was taken down. We've had several episodes that have been taken down, right? Now, it probably hurts us because we're not for profit, but point being is, violation of our First Amendment rights. I think we could make that claim. I think you can make that claim for 100 million people. And that's the only way you hold these folks accountable. Unfortunately, because 4 years is too long of an election cycle. People forget, you say, how can people not care? Did you, and I'm obviously being sarcastic, but did you watch, have you seen what COVID did over the last 3 years? Have you seen people's reaction to that? Because, here's the thing with COVID. You look at all the lockdowns and all that other stuff that happened, especially in these smaller towns, like even our town. Our town doesn't, we don't even have 100,000 people, especially back then when it kicked off. Literally, if enough of the citizens are like, actually, screw you, I'm going to go out and do what I want to do. You know what they can do about it? Absolutely nothing.
Well, it's the same thing in New Mexico. When the New Mexico governor came out and said, I'm declaring, I'm using a public health crisis and I'm suspending, opening concealed carry, there should have been a class action lawsuit on her desk that afternoon. Like, that should have been the easiest lawsuit in the world right there. And the other thing, New Mexico voted to get rid of qualified immunity. So I would welcome the first law enforcement officer to come arrest me. Not a problem. I want you to arrest me, violate my Second Amendment right, because I'm suing you. I'm not suing your police. Your police department's not going to protect you. Your police union's damn sure not going to protect you. I'm suing you because your qualified immunity's gone. The New Mexico thing should have been the easiest lawsuit ever. And guess what?
I think
they haven't done it.
I think it's coming, and far be it from me to admit a crime on a public podcast. I would never do that. So I certainly wish I would have been in New Mexico, been just passing through New Mexico, just happened to be passing through, listen to my programs, listen to my podcasts where I heard that the New Mexico governor did that. I wish I would have been in New Mexico when that happened, so I could purposely appendix carry my little 6 hour into a public place and break the law that the governor had just instituted. I wish that would have happened. Those of you on YouTube, I wish that would have happened. It would have felt really good for that to happen. So Josh said he has one more question when I'm done. I'm done for now. Not for good, but I'm done for now. We got about 4 minutes.
I was saying to Cap Luke's be ungovernable. So quick
That's
question. Right. All right. How often do you guys think about the Roman Empire?
I'll go first, Roger. I think about it. I'm not going to say once a week, but I'm a Wikipedia nerd, and I'm listening to a book right now called Man at Arms that has to do with the Roman Empire. Super good book. Stephen Pressfield, he wrote Gates of Fire. This book is one of the best I've listened to in a while. So lately, I've been thinking about it almost every other day, but I think about it often. I would say once every 2 weeks. Roger?
Lately, not very often. My younger years, I was real big in that classical era. Not so much in my later years.
Oh.
Not even once a month.
Why do you ask, Josh?
So my wife asked me this today out of the blue. She was like, how often do you think about the Roman Empire? And I was like, I don't know, a couple times a week. Because I'm always reading something or I'm watching something, and there's something about the Romans on there, right? And you're like, oh, this Roman road, that's still in existence, and it's better than 90% of the public roads, taxpayer funded roads in America, even though it's 1,000 years old. And so apparently there's this thing going around because she goes, well, and I guess in women's circles right now, there's this thing. It's like, I just randomly asked my husband how often he thinks about the Roman Empire, and he was like a couple times a week. And one of them was like once a day. And so it was like, what? And so it started going, and it kept, it's all over social media. Like, it started going, and people, so wives are asking their husbands now, like, how often do you think about the Roman Empire? And, so I got asked this morning, I was like, a couple times a week. And she just started laughing. I was like, what? And she broke this, she broke it down for me on what's going on. I was like, oh, yeah. I was like, what about you? She's like, never. I was like, I don't know. It must be a guy thing. So ask your wives after we get done recording, go ask your wives, be like, hey, how often do you think about the Roman Empire? And see what they say. It's probably never.
done. So I'll give a quick shout out, and I want to put something on the agenda for the future. Josh wants to have a couple guests on. I think we should do that. Do whatever it takes to get them on, especially the Afghan guy. But in the meantime, I want to put something on the agenda. I want to give a shout out to Eric, and I think Roger. I'll do it for him too. Uh, really appreciate that. Roger says he's good, but I'm still going to pass it to him. Hey, Roger, whatever. Don't pass the buck. So Eric, we really appreciate it. Roger was down there with me. Have a few anecdotes from down there, and it gives me the perfect reason to write a few thoughts about the border and again some of the anecdotes I got from down there. A couple of creepy things, a couple of things I did not know about that particular area in southern Arizona. But on a future podcast, Southern Arizona really struck me. It's always struck me since the time I was down in Fort Huachuca. You guys are down there too. I find it as a very unique area. Arizona is a very unique state. I'd like to talk about it a little bit more in a future podcast. I was hoping we get to it today. But Eric, it's coming. The audience, it's coming. We want to get a few thoughts down about the border and immigration and dovetail my experiences while I was down there into that. So Eric, really appreciate it. There was a lot of shout outs I wanted to get to, but we're running short on time. Roger is dude, Roger ducked out, bro. He's gone. He don't want to talk again. So Josh, I'll shoot it to you to close out unless Roger's got anything to say.
No, I just reiterate. Thanks to Eric. I did leave I like the little guest sign-in book. I did leave a nice little C3 sticker that our guy Will gave to us. We showed you this last episode, but you'll see a C3 sticker in that guest sign-in book. So I greatly appreciate it.
I love it. We start a guerrilla campaign with those stickers. Just start putting them everywhere. So real quick, yeah. So we want to get these folks on, and just it's an Afghan guy who got his family out during the disaster withdrawal from Afghanistan, and then finally got himself out. They're safe in the States, and got some very good friends of mine who did a lot of work to get him here. And then one of the folks who helped him and also wrote a book highlighting him and their relationship and how he got his journey to the States. We want to get them on, and the other thing I want to talk about on the next episode is, and I know Roger hasn't seen it. I saw it last night. It was spontaneous, right after dinner. The wife's like, "Hey, you want to go see a movie?" I was like, "Yeah, let's go." Out of the blue, and we went and saw Oppenheimer. And I tell you, if you have not seen Oppenheimer, go see it. Even if you don't care about the story about Oppenheimer, go see it because the acting alone, the acting was phenomenal. But if you're into that sort of thing, you're into history, and especially when it comes to talking about the invention of the atomic bomb and stuff, like it's phenomenal. It's a massive piece of history. It changed the world. So go see it. One of the things I really want to talk about Oppenheimer though is I got to thinking after watching the movie. Obviously, Oppenheimer struggles, and Roger, I'm going to go ahead and throw a spoiler here is that Oppenheimer invented the atomic bomb. So that's the movie, right? Shocking. But yeah, but Oppenheimer obviously struggled in real life as well. He struggled in the movie with the invention of the atomic bomb and what that was going to allow human beings to do to each other, right? And so one of the things I like kind of want to get into philosophical is the morality piece of it. If you had the ability, and for our listeners too, feel free to chime in on our socials with your thoughts. The morality piece of it, if you had the ability and the knowledge to create a weapon like that, knowing that it's going to proliferate throughout the world eventually, would you do it? And then the second part of that, and we're again, this is for the next episode, should we have dropped the bomb or the bombs, right? Yeah,
Should have done it a third time.
should have done it a third time. I love it. Hey,
I,
I figure I know what some
love
answers are going
this.
to be, but
Dude, Josh, I love that, and I'd love to talk about that the next episode, man. Because this is my bailiwick. I love it, and let's do it, bro.
Yeah. I think it really got me thinking last night, watching the movie and stuff like that. And I know, man, dude, I think we should bring flamethrowers back, but bringing a flamethrower back is a lot different than the ability to incinerate 80,000 people in the blink of an eye, you know? So I would love to have that discussion next episode. Would you create something like that if you had the knowledge and the ability? And would you use it? And should we have used it? So anyway, that's going to do us for this episode. Again, greatly appreciate you listening. One shout out, Dave Graham Cracker. Really appreciate you listening, brother. And we are going to get linked up and grab some beers soon. Uh, until next time, though, keep those canteen cups full. You guys be good to each other. And if you can, get a hold of some Noble Jones whiskey, second distillery out of Augusta, Georgia. It's fantastic. Until next time.